going to get up and run around. That looks dumb. But man, I got these brand new weapons, man, But I sat there and they all came up to me. They came to shake my hand. And it was in that moment that I realized, have you ever had it where something's about to go down? Like you just know something is about to take place. And when I grabbed his hand, I'm like, as soon as I grab his hand, they've got my power.
You felt it.
It's on, it is on. And it was the weirdest thing. I was just actually recently telling somebody about this, where we shook hands and
Welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast, where we bring to you the most successful, happy, fulfilled gentlemen from around the world who have been able to conquer themselves, their life, their marriage, and their businesses. You will be learning from four-dimensional gentlemen who have cracked the code to the science of having it all. The question is, how can married entrepreneurs with kids become gentlemen, achieve true freedom, and build a successful, happy, and fulfilled life, marriage, and business? This show will give you the answer for that. My name is Alex Ramirez, and I'm your host, and you're welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, Fulfillment Talk podcast.
We're dealing with a lot of guys that's in crisis mode. I started, you may have seen it, but I got the marriage summit, the Win Back Your Wife summit. And so we're getting a lot of guys coming through that particular funnel. And so they are in crisis mode because their wife has left, or there's a divorce or affair, those types of things. And so that's only, as you do, as I do, we break up life into the what I call the four primary quadrants of faith, family, production, and health. And so really we're only focused right now. I shouldn't say only, but primarily focused on the men on the family side and deal with the marriage side. So we have a lot of opportunity that on the production side, the health side, where we're playing around with some ideas of either doing other summits, other webinars, other trainings, and really getting more guys that way. Because right now I'm looking at this one funnel that's just one fishing hook, to bring guys in, and it's primarily with a very specific problem. And so there's a lot more opportunity. I've been playing around with doing a business and leadership summit. And so I thought that there's some potential there that we can discuss. There's a lot. We've got live events being planned. There's a lot on the table that we're trying to map out over the next, probably the first quarter of the year, and figure out when it all takes place. So yeah. The first thing, I think when I was writing that down, it was for the Business and Leadership Summit, I believe. But like I said, we've got a couple other things too. And I know you're into health, obviously, as well. So there might be some stuff on that side of things as well.
That's great, man. So it seems like, you cover the four quadrants, you call them.
Yeah.
Great. It's pretty much the same, right? I call them freedoms, right? Just because of my message and stuff. But it's great. And I could definitely see how, I don't know, how we can maybe collaborate. I actually just joined the program. I don't know if you're familiar with who Woody Jefferson and who Nick Alfano is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you're joined with him? Yeah.
So I actually, I connected with Cody back, a couple of months ago, and then I connected with Nick. I connected with Garrett J. White. So like, man, like starting this podcast, you want to know what was the number one thing that was holding me from starting this podcast and actually stepping into my purpose and what I actually wanted to do?
What's that?
Belief. That's all.
I believe it.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, so, no, it's true.
I've been forming really awesome relationships, really awesome conversations. So I recently joined the program, and there's coaches, right? So it's not just Nick, right? There's coaches inside of the program, right? One that specializes in the fitness part, and then one that specializes in the relationship part, and then Nick for business. So yeah, I get what you were saying. I still don't have like any live events or anything like that going on. I'm pretty new into this field. But I would love, man. I'd love to have this relationship, and I'd love to see how I could possibly help and contribute to what you're doing in the future.
Yeah,
but yeah, man.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some opportunity there, and as we kind of fine tune things, I can definitely keep you posted. There's a lot right now, a lot going on. And what we're finding is, and this wasn't necessarily the goal, because I've got, just like you, we got these different frameworks that we're teaching and things like that. What I was not expecting is to go as hard and deep with these guys. Like I said, these guys are dealing with crisis mode, and we're hitting very deep and pulling out roots of belief systems and rejection. And I mean, all these types of things that take place that really we're prepared for, but we weren't planning on in this first round. And so it's taken up a little bit more time. So we've modified and customized what we're currently doing. But yeah, man, I think there's definitely some opportunity there. And now, are you a part of Cody's? Was it the Lions? Man, I can't. It's Lion something, right? Lion Method.
Um, Lion Elite.
Okay, gotcha. I knew there was a lion in there. So cool.
I'm actually just working with Cody.
Okay.
I mean with Nick Afano,
Okay.
not with Cody. But yeah, man. And I mean this talk is about you. It's not about me, but like just for the audience, right? And I started recording this went a little bit different than it usually goes, which I mean I'm liking it. But one thing that I would say to someone really young, right, to a married entrepreneur with kids who's young and starting out is for him to start a podcast, man, and to start focusing on building relationships. Because in the past couple of months since I started this, I already, that this has already brought to me an opportunity to even speak at an event. So like this is how relationships can really impact your life, right? So for anyone listening and that like who doesn't know what to do, what to focus on, there's a lot that you can focus on. And one thing that you should prioritize is relationships, right? And anyway, man, and so let me introduce you, right? This didn't go as it usually does, but it's okay. So have Paul Cooley, is that right? Cooley?
Yeah, Cooley. Yeah.
Cool. Paul Cooley. He's the founder of King's Code, which empowers married businessmen to be the men God has called them to be and achieve lasting results in their faith, family, business, and health. And the frameworks Paul teaches was birthed through trial and fire during a very dark time of his life. So he actually went through all of the dark things that he now helps men go through, right? And come at the other end victorious. And he's also a husband, father, preacher, coach, and podcaster. He's married to his wife, Christy, and has 4 wonderful kids. So this is who I have right now, and I'm very, very excited to have him. So you're welcome. Thank you for being here, Paul, and welcome, man. Welcome to the Gentleman's SHF Talk.
Absolutely. No, I'm glad to be here, and thanks for having me.
Man, so first thing that I do, right, is that I put my guests on the line. I make them a little bit discomfortable, and the way that I do that is by telling them to tell us a little bit about their journey, right, their entrepreneurial journey, life journey, in 60 seconds or less.
Easy enough. All right. Tell me when. Do we got a countdown? We got a timer? No. So basically, all right, here we go. So found myself husband in a really crappy marriage, married with 4 kids, in ministry, got bit by the entrepreneurial bug. About 12 years later, a bunch of drama happened. My wife ended up leaving me. And it was during that period of time where I realized it was time to make a change. And so I had a choice to either fight for my marriage or let it go, like so many men do. And I made a choice to choose God and God's way. And within a miraculous period of time, God really laid out a roadmap for me. And that roadmap caused me to win my wife back. But I realized that roadmap was also a framework for every area of life. And now that is now the King's Code, where we're helping men with these frameworks to really get empowered in life and really, like you just said, faith, family, production, and health.
That's great, man. Pretty simple. So, all right. So I want to dive deeper into, you were married with 4 kids, right? So when did that happen? When did you get married and started having kids? How old were you? What age did you have?
So yeah, life got pretty busy once I got married. So I got married at age, I think it was 24. And
pretty young.
Yeah. And I was a dad the same day. So basically, when I met my wife, her daughter was about 8-9 months old, and I ended up adopting her. So it was a big adjustment all at the same time. And then kind of a couple of years later, we had our second child. And in that very same month, my wife and I took over a coffee shop. So life has really been nonstop ever since.
All right. So then, so before you were 24, tell me a little bit about like your life, man, and your journey before you were 24, right? What I'm trying to like find out and really dive deep into is, like this, what I was mentioning right now about the perfect way to become a gentleman, right? Working on your physical freedom, emotional freedom, which would be health, right? And it would be faith, and then it would be financial, right? The money, and then lastly, it would be family, right? And then so that by the time you get to family, everything's taken care of, right? So what I'm trying to dive deep into is like, how was your life before you were 24 and decided to get married and start having kids, and your life started to get really busy? How was that part of your life?
So I have a kind of not so typical teenage life.
Okay.
I was kind of the loner. I kind of rebelled against everything, including the partying. So I was never a partier. That was never my thing. I got heavily involved in martial arts. Moved through the ranks rather quickly. That consumed my life, and so I became an instructor rather quickly. And when I say martial arts, it was, excuse me, it was the most brutal of martial arts. And so it's take no prisoner style martial arts. And so that really started to affect my belief and outlook on life. And so with that came some enemies that did not like me, that did not want me around at all. And there was quite a few very close calls with different weapons and things of that nature. But there was a turning point too. And because I'd grown up in the church and kind of fallen away during this period of time, I remember being surrounded by these guys that did not want me. They said they wanted me dead. And I remember I was sitting on my tailgate of a truck, and I had just gotten some for the sake of this interview, some brand new tools, but they were new weapons in my arsenal here in the cab of my truck. And I'm sitting on the bed, and this car pulls up. These guys get out, and I'm like, it's going to be showtime, And I'm like, man, I'm not going to get up and run around. That looks dumb. But man, I got these brand new weapons, man, But I sat there, and they all came up to me. They came to shake my hand. And it was in that moment that I realized, have you ever had it where something's about to go down? Like you just know something is about to take place. And I when I grabbed his hand, I'm like, as soon as I grab his hand, they've got my power.
You felt it.
It's on, it is on. And it was the weirdest thing. I was just actually recently telling somebody about this, where we shook hands and his face kind of went blank, because I'm getting ready, man. I'm like, I'm ready. And he did this weird double blank thing, took us a couple steps back, literally turned around, got in his car. And I went, what on earth just took place here? Like, I'm ready to go. We've been waiting for this moment, I don't care, 6-on-1, I will take them out, and in that moment, I knew God was trying to get my attention. And a couple other things took place that were on the violent side that really started getting my attention. And I'm like, I need to make a change here. And so from really my early 20s, probably 2021 on, that's really when I got into ministry and was dealing with people. I mean, I've always, I guess, attracted a strange crowd. I mean, in my groups and in my Bible studies and counseling sessions and whatnot, I mean, just bizarre situations. People, I'm seeing this and frogs are talking to me. I mean, just weird stuff, right? So I immediately get the weird people that weird stuff's going on. So I did not have a normal, early days before getting married. And that just kind of bled over into getting married.
Okay, cool. Then, man, just curious, what do you think you would have done if like that hadn't happened with the guy who like just turned it around and left? What would you have done?
I used to jokingly call it my Rambo mode. The particular styles that I used to train in was a lot of Filipino styles, which is heavily knife and stick, and just, it's not meant to take prisoners. It's meant to stop. So, I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to, take anyone out, but 6-on-1, and there was always around about 6 knives on me at that point in time in life. It probably would not have been good. And I probably, it could have been jail time. There's many situations that could have been jail time. But God always intervened. And that was the weird part. And I'm like, man, this is getting annoying. And it, shaking my fist at God, which is not the smart thing to do, but that's what I found myself. And I'm like, all right, God, you got my attention. What are we doing here? So.
And you said, you mentioned how like, being immersed in the martial arts stuff really changed your outlook on life, right? And your mindset. What do you mean by that?
It was very dark, very cold. Literally, you get to the place where every interaction, just walking down the street, you're thinking about how you could do something to somebody. it was very, very violent. My teacher, or I should say my teacher's teacher, went to Vietnam and volunteered to go back again just because he liked killing so much. I mean, that gives you kind of an idea of the mentality that was passed down. And so, yeah, it wasn't good. It was very much beyond just self-defense. It was a complete mindset that in every scenario, every communication, every interaction, walking down, the mall, whatever, you're looking at everything and assessing everything to, if this guy jumped out, I would break his arm. This guy, so it was very, it was not a very freeing or joyful time. It was a very, but at the same time, this weird pride takes over because you can take somebody out, and it really changes who you are as a person, which at the end of all that, I didn't like who I had become.
Damn. So do you think that had an impact on your marriage and your relationships?
It definitely showed me, because I think God softened my heart after I got out of martial arts. And so I think that was definitely a good thing on the side of, especially for the kids and all of that good stuff. Yeah, I mean, as far as marriage and all that kind of stuff, I don't see it having a big effect, other than I was always very protective and always did the right measures to protect my family. And that was always a priority.
So man, so like what I'm trying to do is go into like your darkness. I don't know if you want to take me, or like into like that dark time in which you lost your wife. Like what was happening through your life?
I can
Were
definitely
you
share that.
running a business?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So yeah, tell me about that, man.
Yeah, so I've been in business for probably about 15 years now. Many different things, many different mistakes along the way, especially in the early days. In the early days, I think I quit. I mean, this just shows you how I was, where I flat out quit full-time jobs to start my own business and didn't have a clue what I was doing. Those were the early days. But when it got to the place of being in marriage, so about I'm going to say probably year 8 or 9, it got really bad, where we started just become more roommates. And there's a conflict that goes on being a guy that's in business and being a guy that's in ministry. There's expectations of, hey, you need to have it all together, because you got to be an example in all these things. And yet I think I always try to be a good example, but I knew this marriage sucks and is not getting better. And so we got to the place where we were just kind of roommates. It was not fun. And so around the time, and about this is 12 years into marriage, it got extra bad. It got extra bad. And I noticed my wife stopped wearing a ring. She started sleeping on the couch. And after about a month of that, I came home one day and looked on my desk, and there was a letter saying, I'm done. I'm leaving. This is over. And I remember in that moment, there, oddly enough, was not a lot of emotion. I think I was so numb. I was so beat down, and I got so used to telling stories to myself to justify why I had checked out, that's when there was no real emotion. And I remember waiting up for her, because she at the time was a waitress, usually working night shifts at a restaurant. And I waited for her to get home. So it was about midnight that night, the night of getting the letter. And I went up to her and I said, you know what? This is how it's going to be, huh? And I said, you know what? You need to go then and do whatever you're going to do. But know this, the kids are not coming with you. They are not going to know 2 homes. They're not going to do this thing. I'm not going to be another businessman, and I'm not going to be another minister or preacher that is in divorce. Like that is just not an option for me. I never used the D word. And that was never, divorce was never a word that I used. And so she moved out, signed a 1-year lease. Internet was coming. I mean, it was done deal. And it was about a day. I'm going to say probably, I remember she moved out on a Saturday, and I had taken the kids to a nearby park, and we had a security camera, hooked up on the app where you could see what was going on your phone. So I remember watching my wife walk out for the first time. I mean, she's walking out with couches, and her sister and sister's husband's helping. I'm just moving stuff out. Right. And then I got to go home and explain to the kids, where's mommy and why is furniture gone? And so I remember in that moment, that day anyway, I went into this, something shifted in me. And I went into this weird mode of first and foremost, trying to make everything just seem normal. So I went out, I immediately went to the store, started buying stuff that were similar to the things that she took. So I could try to make everything seem normal for the kids, because that was always a concern. But then I would say probably a couple more days into this thing, I was haunted with a thought. And this is where everything really shifted for me. And I know not everyone's going to relate to this or even believe it, but this is the thought that I had is someday standing before God and God asking me, did you do everything that I asked you to do in that marriage? Did you really fight for your marriage the way that you should have or could have? Because I don't know about you, but I want to hear well done, good and faithful someday. Like that's kind of a goal of mine, right? And I want that for everybody, but that's kind of a goal. And I realized the answer was no. I had stopped fighting. I had stopped making an effort. I just started getting used to living in this stupid place of roommates. And I was okay with it because I was so beat down. And again, telling myself stories to justify it. And so in that moment, a fire rose up in me. This fire that said, I am going to fight for this marriage, even though it's over, even though it's too late. And being in ministry, I'm like, hey, God, you're the God of the impossibles and the too lates. You can pull this off. I don't know how, but all I can say is I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight for this marriage like I never have before. And so it was around that night. I don't know if you've ever experienced this. And for lack of better words, I felt like God gave me this download, for lack of better words, where all of a sudden it was like I knew what I needed to do, because I knew I was going to have my role in this, but I knew God was going to have his role too. And I wanted to be super clear on whose job was what. So I didn't get in the way, because we have a habit of doing that. And so this roadmap that's now the King's Code really was a series of steps and frameworks that just suddenly it was like my eyes were opened. Things that I had taught on, suddenly everything was expanded on, and all these different things took place. And I remember that night sitting down and writing out not one letter, but 8 letters to my wife, and everything. And again, I don't know if your audience is necessarily going to relate to this or not, but I'm just telling you what this is true for me and what happened. And so I knew, even from writing the letters to my wife, this is an opportunity for me to just, call her whatever and say all the things she did wrong. I mean, it was an opportunity there, but I didn't. And so I'm like, from how I started the letter to the middle, the end, all of it, I just felt like there was this framework there that God was showing me. And so 68 letters later, I got her back, but she didn't read all the letters. And so really, I even started realizing that was just depositing. I was just making deposits into this quadrant, this family quadrant inside of the marriage. And there was many other things that took place during that time, but I knew I had a choice in that moment. I could turn to things that the world offers. I could turn to anything to escape and try to numb the pain that I was feeling. I stopped eating and sleeping during that period of time too. So you don't want to talk about a dark place. I mean, it was one of those things where I was sick to my stomach, absolutely sick to my stomach. I lost 16 pounds, 3 weeks. I stopped eating, stopped sleeping. I was having a half a meal a day. I mean, that's really what it was. And I could barely keep that down. I was just absolutely sick to my stomach, but I had this framework to follow. And so I was praying hard and implementing this framework. And there was a lot of...
Hey, sorry for the interruption. Real quick, do you want to know how I've been using my podcast to build a multi-million-dollar network with over 100 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs, reach hundreds of my ideal clients with my message, coaching, service, and podcast, get invited to speak on 4 stages in the last 2 months alone, throw my own events, and have over 100 successful entrepreneurs being willing to speak at my events, become a millionaire in 1 year, get mentored by multimillionaires, and achieve goals that I thought were going to take me 10 years to achieve in 1 year, and ultimately get unstuck and make quantum leaps of progress in my business and life with less than 1 hour of work just by being myself. If you answered yes to any of those, I just want to invite you to a free training showing you how I've been able to build a multi-million-dollar network that is helping me achieve bigger income goals faster with only 1 hour of speaking and just being myself. To be honest, I thought I was going to be a multi-millionaire, speak on stages, throw my own events, and live a successful, happy, and fulfilled life of growth and impact in 10 years from now. That seemed so far away, but my podcast has been able to help me do that in less than 6 months. I'm actually doing all of that this year at the age of 21 with my podcast. I'm reaching thousands of people with my message, my service, my podcast, my coaching. I've gotten booked to speak on 4 stages in the last 2 months. And on these stages, I'm going to be getting in front of hundreds of my ideal clients, making roughly around 15 to 30K plus per event. Not only that, I have a network of over 100 high-level, multi-million-dollar entrepreneurs who have all agreed to speak at my events. Getting clients is a problem of the past. I've gotten the opportunities to learn from billionaires, and I'm collapsing decades of time, and I'm literally achieving what I thought was going to take me 10 years to achieve in 1 year. All of this because I use podcasting as a networking tool, and I leveraged a rare concept called the cloak track. And I want the exact same thing for you. Just imagine where you could be in 1 year from now if you get this free training right now. That is why I'm inviting you to this training. On this short training, you're going to learn how a small group of purpose-driven entrepreneurs, authors, coaches, course creators, and speakers have combined podcasting with this rare concept called the cloak track to build a multi-million-dollar network, reach thousands of their ideal clients with their message, books, courses, coaching, make an extra $118,800, get booked on 10 stages, and build a successful network of entrepreneurs who speak on their stage. All of this in under 6 months. I'm going to walk you through the 4 steps to make this work. Step number 1, alignment. Getting clear on who you want to be, what you want to do, your goals, your purpose, and aligning all of this with building your podcast and your ideal podcast guest. Step number 2, leveraging the cloak track to find your ideal podcast guest and never running out of them. Step number 3, leveraging the cloak track to close an interview with anyone, no matter how rich, famous, or out of your league they may seem. And step number 4, the content machine. The content machine is the key to tapping into other people's audiences. And I'm going to show you all of those 4 steps. The link to access this free training is in the description of this video. Click on it and go watch this training right now so that you can learn how you can too build a multi-million-dollar network that helps you achieve bigger goals faster and with less effort. Note, this training is only available to 18 people, so act right now, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Bye-bye.
Painful things that took place during that period of time. I'm not going to say it was easy by any means, but because I chose one way rather than another, I got a different result. And so she came back, and I can honestly say our marriage is unlike it's ever been before, ever. Even if it's best of times, nothing compared to what it is now.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations for having won your wife back.
Thank you.
And man, I want to ask you a question, and because I think, I mean, I've experienced this in my marriage, even though for some reason I have this notion, this like belief or this story in my head that because I'm in my 20s, I should, I don't know, like desire sex, which I don't, right? Like I don't most of the time, right? So I have this like this story in my head, like this belief that I should for some reason, right?
Yeah.
But I don't, right? And I've talked to some men, and I mean, and I've got, I've been able to work through that because that used to make me feel bad. But I think that this roommate thing is a problem, in the marriages of a lot of men, right? It's not only a problem not only was a problem in your marriage. I think I've experienced that to some level, and I think a lot of other married entrepreneurs with kids experience that same thing to some degree. So, like, when you say that your marriage was like more of a roommate thing, like what exactly do you mean by that? And like what was causing that? Like I just want to dive deeper into that if you're comfortable.
No,
with it, right?
hey, no, it's all good, man. Basically, over a period of years of how it led just to this whole roommate syndrome or whatever you want to call it. I know there's different names for it, but to get to that place of just being a roommate, I think there was a couple of key things that did not take place and that started to take place that really fed into this, and it caused more division, more separation. And so there's a couple of things. In my opinion, we were never ones that went out and had fun. We didn't date. I mean, like I said, when we got the coffee shop, life just, never stopped. And so we stopped dating. Communication started to go way downhill. As far as you mentioned sex, I mean, it was, it was there, but at the same time, I had my own issues to work through. I remember for the first 5 years of marriage, I did not enjoy sex. And it sounds so weird because most guys do, right? Most guys, that's what they want. And I'm like,
that's what they say they say they do, right? But I mean, we actually don't know, right? And the fact that you can say that you didn't is fucking awesome, because I can say that I don't also, like, that I haven't, right? That sex is not always this amazing thing. So yeah, sorry, man, to interrupt you, but yeah.
No, I know. And I was able to recognize, and through help of a couple loved ones and trusted ones, I realized I had a belief system that needed to be adjusted even on that one. Now, this wasn't during the darkest times, but I recognized, 5 years in, going, why don't I enjoy this as much? Why don't, why am I so weird in this way? So, but really, with my background in ministry and growing up in the family I did, sex before marriage was off the table. And I know, and I'm not saying that anyone has to follow that, but I'm following what the Bible says. And that's the life that I chose. Right. But because that was so ingrained into me, and I took it to extremes, because that's kind of what I do. I'll take something and take it to an extreme place, as I think we all do as entrepreneurs. Right. And so, when I got married, suddenly this forbidden thing was now okay. But in my mind, it still was not okay. And it took 5 years to recognize that, and it was just kind of, so for whatever reason, I think there are belief systems, and as entrepreneurs, we're driven, we're building the business, we got family, we're tired, and it's easy to start letting that stuff go. Now, what I will say on the flip side of that is that it is important. Sex is important inside of a marriage, because that is such a form of, when it's done right, when it's in the purest of forms, the way God intended, it is a beautiful thing. And it's a way of coming together in the most intimate of ways, the most intimate of communication. It's the sealing of a covenant between them and God. It's an awesome thing, and it should be enjoyed. It should be appreciated. And I don't think, like, when my wife came back, my entire perspective on sex changed, entire perspective. And suddenly, for the first time, I'm like, man, I kind of like want this. What changed? But I recognize the importance of it. And I think when communication and intimacy drop in a marriage, and people take their eyes off of God, in my personal opinion, I know my wife did. And so she didn't want to grow spiritually. I did. So there was this division that started happening right off the bat. And so the combination, though, of not going out on dates, not communicating, sex being occasional, all of that played into that. But I think the biggest one was the foundation got really rocky, because one side stopped growing, and, lies. And I've said this before, I think when the wife gets distracted in a marriage and the husband gets discouraged, the enemy creeps in and destroys every time. And that's really what happened.
Damn. When the wife gets distracted in a marriage, and then the husband gets discouraged, stops fighting for it, the enemy comes in. Damn, that's deep, man. That's deep. So it was lack of communication, lack of connection. The sex might have been a problem as well. What else? What else did you notice that caused everything to go downhill?
Well, I mean, a lot of it, I'd say the biggest one, and I believe, I could blame my wife for a lot of things before and during that time. I could. Mm-hmm. And I recognize, though, we as men, we've got to take ownership of our actions. We have to take ownership of our lack of actions, because our beliefs dictate our actions, and our actions dictate our results. And so when I got so beat down and discouraged, remember, she got distracted, I got discouraged, the enemy was creeping in, and I was telling myself stories. Man, she doesn't want to grow. Man, she just is always getting distracted with this, that, and that. Man, I'm never the priority. All these things, right? And eventually we as men will be like, all right, peace out. I'm going to go work on the business. I'm going to go to the gym. And the gym was my outlet. Oh my gosh. Like, I was so fueled by anger. That was one of the few emotions that I felt a lot of, was every night I get the kids down and I hit the gym, 9:30 at night, I'm going to the gym. And so that was part of my lifestyle. And again, all of that led to this further division between me and my wife. And but I stopped fighting. The enemy's coming in. It's kind of like I always equate it to you always lock your doors and windows at night, right? It's kind of your routine. You're taking care of your realm, your turf, your domain. And yet we don't necessarily do that spiritually. And that's something that we teach hard inside of the King's Code is you have your physical realm. But how stupid would it be to leave your door open and then allow somebody to come in and start taking your stuff, telling you what to do and doing whatever they want to your wife and kids? Like, you wouldn't stand for that. You wouldn't be like, hey, yeah, come on in. I'm just going to chill and watch Netflix over here. No, you're not going to do that. You're going to fight. You're going to be like, get out of my house. And it's going to be on, right? Well, spiritually, if I believe there's a real God and I believe there's a real devil. And so if we will say we believe in God, then we probably should recognize there's probably a real enemy, a spiritual enemy as well, that's after our souls. And so if he's creeping in on our turf and we're too busy being discouraged, she's distracted, and I'm not fighting for my marriage, it's gonna end. Like, it's going to end. So it might be a short, it might be a long thing. It might be stretched out depending on personalities and patience and all of that, but it's going to end because the enemy is causing division. And what a good old Abraham Lincoln, didn't he say, a house divided can't stand? Ants in the Bible. So, it's just, it all feeds into it.
And so how does having a marriage that ends, right? Having, like a marriage that sucks, pretty much, the marriage that doesn't work, a marriage that is, that is, on the verge of divorce, on the verge of breaking, right? A marriage that has already let the enemy to creep in. How does that affect business, man? Like, in your opinion and based on your experience and, what you've seen with many of people that you've probably helped, right? So,
yeah, on just I guess a higher altitude overview, it totally affects. I mean, I can share what I experienced, but I've also seen it with others. I've seen successful CEOs that crumble because their marriage is now falling apart because they devoted years of ignoring the wife and focusing on the business, justifying and telling the story, hey, I'm doing this for you, I'm doing this for the kids, but at the same time not giving the kids or the wife what they need. And then it falls apart, and now it falls apart. So now their attention and everything on the business starts to fall as well. Now, I don't know exactly what you teach, but as far as, with what you have and then my 4 quadrants, even though I break them up into boxes, I personally, you got to break down the walls because each one affects the other. Now, I personally believe your faith in God should encompass all of it. But if your marriage sucks, it's going to bleed over into your business. And I know that's when my wife left. Like I said, I stopped eating, sleeping. I put my business on maintenance mode as best as I could. I was not trying to grow during that period of time. I didn't even want to talk to any client. So I did my best to keep everything on maintenance mode as best as I could. And because my head was not in the game at all. And I think on something not as extreme as that, but just marriage bad in general, or intimacy is not there. And so men turn to other things instead. There is this lack of intimacy that we want, or connection, maybe I should say, that we want. And so, yes, that totally bleeds over into these other areas of life, including business.
Cool. So, man, so let's say, I don't know, let's just say, I don't know, I know this hasn't happened, right? But let's just say that I went through everything that you teach, and you helped me, like, take my marriage to the next level. You helped me win my wife back, and, our marriage becomes the best it's ever been. What would you say? How would that spill over into my business? What would be the results that I get in my business just from working on that aspect of my life? From your experience and from other people's experience.
Sure. I think there's 2 things. One, the frameworks that we teach, because production, includes the business and finances, a lot of the frameworks that we're teaching that works inside of a marriage also works inside of the business, also works inside of the faith, also works inside of the health. And so from week 1, inside of our programs, they're starting to understand that, hey, although you're probably not going to get a result today, understand how this works. And so as they are continuing to produce and deposit into their quadrants, they are starting to, they're sowing in. And sometimes when you sow a seed, sometimes it takes a little bit longer for it to sprout and start growing and producing fruit. But we're going for results in every area of life. But more specifically, to answer your question, the guys that are getting their marriage fixed, because we do have guys that are going through health issues and stagnant faith issues and those types of things as well. But the ones that are really focused on their marriage, we're tying things in here. So as an example, the guys with marriage, they're understanding what covenant is. And a lot of that's not really taught these days. It's a pretty deep thing, and it's an in-depth study. But when you truly understand how God intended marriage and what a covenant is and what cutting a covenant is, then you start to realize and see your wife differently. So when you start to see your wife differently, instead of being the nag, instead of being the roommate, instead of being the person that's just never ignoring, maybe she's ignoring whatever she is to you, whatever. Now you start viewing her the way that God sees her, as a queen. Hey, you're rising up as a king, and now she's your queen. And so the perspective completely changes now. So now it's not me trying to just produce. It's now we're a team building an empire. The perspective completely changes. Now, there's got to be wisdom in that. Some wives want to be included in the business side. Some don't want to know anything. But at this, regardless of what's relevant for you, it's now teamwork. It's now, hey, I'm doing this, you're doing this, and we have the same vision of where we're going. The end result of what we're wanting, we're both working and we're doing our part to get there. And so now that totally, if you go to the office, you start working and you know that your wife has your back and she's proud of you and she's praying for you. And man, I mean, she has your support, or you have her support, I should say, rather. You know that there is a confidence that comes up compared to the times where you just got in a fight and then went to the office and started working. There's a difference.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I'm starting work and now I'm pissed off because she's pissed off at me for whatever stupid reason, and it starts to bleed over. So if we don't take care of that stuff fast, we start getting roots of bitterness and resentment and hostility. And again, that all feeds into that division inside of a marriage.
Cool. And so I want to talk about the division, right? And I selfishly want to, like put my life into this, like my own life and my own experience into this, because I also, selfishly, and I also think that this is going to benefit some of the listeners, because I think that this is a widespread problem that not only because I'm not perfect, nobody is, right? But like this division that I experience a division, right? This division that we're talking about, in which I'm working on myself. I'm working on my business. I'm trying to grow myself physically, emotionally, spiritually, sentimentally, financially. But then like I feel my wife doesn't. Like I feel like she doesn't. And I was actually having a conversation with Cody the other day, and and we were talking about this division, because he's divorced, right? And I asked like what happened, right? Because he also focuses on those four quadrants as well, on those four areas of life. And I asked like what happened? Why did that happen? And he was like, well, it happened because, well, like we wanted different things, right? We wanted different things. And at a certain point in our lives, we thought that we were in love, but then we find out that we were pretty different and that we actually weren't, and that we wanted different things. So, and then I told him that sometimes like I feel like I don't like the reason that I'm here with my family, with my wife and with my kids, is because of commitment, right? Not because I feel, I don't remember exactly how I said it, but basically it was that it was because of commitment, right? Like I'm here because I'm committed to becoming a modern gentleman, because I'm committed to being there for them, right? Because I'm committed, and I told him that love, it's an emotion, and you're not gonna always be feeling in love, right? Like just like anger, it's an emotion and it goes away tomorrow, and you could be happy tomorrow, and then you could be angry again the other day. So I think that love, like that if you based your love for your family out of the love that you feel, well, you would be screwed up, because love, it fades away. But I know that I love them because I am committed to loving them. I don't know if you can understand what I say, right? So, but I do feel that how did you call it, that this connection, that division, yeah. So in which like I'm growing myself, I'm working out, I'm working physically, I'm growing myself physically, mentally, right? I'm working on myself, on growing myself emotionally, mastering who I am, trying to go deeper and deeper and stepping into my purpose, developing my connection with God. I'm intentionally working on my marriage, right? Like I'm putting some effort into it, and I gotta say, man, that it's one of the hardest things I've ever done. Actually being a dad and a husband and being there for your family, and then I'm working in business. But then I turn to my side, and I don't feel like the other person is actually putting the same effort, right? So, like, what would you say to me, right? And what would you say to anyone having the same problem? Because it's crazy at the amount of men who face that problem, man.
Well, before I actually answer that, let me just say props to you for something, because your conversation with Cody, like, and I don't know Cody. I know of him. I don't know him. I'm not putting him down when I say what I'm about to say. But as far as saying something like, well, we grew apart, so we got divorced, to me is an excuse. And again, I am not putting Cody down. I know he's a great guy helping lots of guys. So I'm truly not. Cody, if you ever hear this, I'm not putting you down. But often we take those excuses and we say, I'm going to break this covenant simply because I don't want what you want. She doesn't want what I want. And you know what that's rooted in? Selfishness, self-centeredness, pride, which is the original fall of mankind, was due to pride, self-centeredness. So when we can recognize self-centeredness, when, hey, you know what? I'm not loving you because I'm too busy concerned about you loving me. I'm being selfish. I'm being self-centered. It's all about me, me, me. Now, here's where we have, and I hope I answer your question here, and that is, we as men and we as entrepreneurs typically are growth minded, right? We want to grow. We want to grow in every area of life, and it's never fast enough. Awesome. So when we have a spouse that does not have that same drive or that same motivation or desire to grow, this is an opportunity for two things to happen: division, right? Hey, all right, I'm going to keep working. I'm going to be a better version of myself, and all the different slang that's used on the internet these days. I'm just going to be better. And this is when divorce starts to happen. This is when separation starts. This is when affairs start to happen, because now eventually, and I'll use your scenario as an example. I'm not going to use you as an example, but your scenario. This is when you go to a business conference and there's a whole bunch of people there, and there's some, hot chick that is also entrepreneurial minded, and you guys connect, and then it goes to the hotel room. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a connection there and an attraction there, because now you got someone that's growth minded. Yeah, they want to grow. And man, what kind of empire could we build? And now the covenant and the love that once was there is suddenly not a priority anymore. And you make a great point about love, right? I believe there's three different types of love. There's the friendship kind of love that we can have as brothers, and hey man, I got your back, you got mine, that's great. Then there's the more lustful kind of love, which really is more of an infatuation and what can I get from you, and we see that all the time, man. Girls, guys going at it with each other simply because, oh, I love you too, all right man, let's go to the bed. It's not real love. It's fake, it's phony, and it's a temporary thing. But
and then there's the decision.
Yeah, exactly. And then they got to deal with the results of that, right? And so, but the kind of love that we need to make sure we have is the agape love. And this is the unconditional love. This is the love that's included in a covenant. When I'm saying, hey, I'm coming into covenant with my wife. So regardless if she stops growing, and here's where I think I answer your question, is when she does not want to grow and you do. This is where you have an opportunity to go, man, I'm just so discouraged. She's distracted. She doesn't want to grow. She'd rather scroll on Facebook, Pinterest, and TikTok. And I want to grow, man. I'm spending my spare time doing these other things, improving myself and growing the business and all this stuff. And now you start to view her differently. And so this is where you have to stop yourself and have a little conversation with yourself and say, you know what, this is still the woman that I am in covenant with. And I made a choice to love her. Regardless of how I feel in this moment, I made a commitment to love her. I got the ring to prove it, right? I made a commitment to this woman. And so to say, well, we grew apart, that's an excuse. And I'm not saying there's not justification for some of those things, but often, most divorces, it's based on self-centeredness. And so when we can say, you know what, I'm going to die to myself. I'm not going to stop growing, but instead of me getting pissed off at you and discouraged, I am going to change and I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do something different than what most guys are going to do. First, I'm going to communicate with you. Hey, you know what? And it might be baby steps, man. It might be baby steps, but I'm going to up communication. When I won my wife back, we did 2 date nights a week, man. I mean, desperate times called for desperate measures. One date was all about communication. The other date was all about having fun because we had never had that before. And so I had to bring her up to where I was, and it takes time. But the second thing, aside from communicating and choosing to love her and serve her, is also to be praying for her. because I believe that that's something that we as men do not do with our wives, which is dumb, because how many prayers have you done? Man, God bless this business, bless this business. But how many times God bless my wife? It changes perspective. And so when you start thinking about that kind of stuff, and when that discouragement, you start to feel that twinge of discouragement, we have to be quick to stop ourselves and go, what's really going on up here? Why am I got to hold this thought captive and say, wait a minute. And so, there's safeguards for that. And there's ways that frameworks that you can implement to kind of protect yourself from that. But I think to ultimately answer your question is you have to recognize there's an opportunity for division here, and you're not going to let that happen. And so I'm gonna cause that division to motivate me to love her even harder. And because I think when we start to do that, we give our wives a permission to grow and blossom into the queens that God has called them to be, instead of them trying to fit our mold. And I think often we're just wanting them to fit our mold. And it can suck. I mean, there's hard times in that, but I think we tend to do that.
Damn. Yeah, that was awesome, man. Let me tell you what's going on up here in my head. All right. You said, you got to become aware of what's going on. So let me tell you what's going on, man. And one of the things that has been going on is I've thought about, probably the solution to making my dreams become a reality and to grow this business and to have everything that I want is to just abandon my family. Like that has gone through my head, right? Which, a lot of men are in that with that mindset as well. Actually, I had a conversation the other day on a man, and we were talking about being becoming a gentleman, and he told me that basically he said that it was great to not have to abandon your family to be able to do what you want to do, right? So I actually thought about abandoning my family, right? I've considered the idea of abandoning my family, getting a divorce, abandoning my kids, and maybe that's gonna free me up to work on my business. But that's like a desire. I don't know. That's like a feeling, right? That I get, right? That this feeling, it's a feeling, right? But then I take a look at what do I really want? Like, what do I really want? And what I really want is to be a modern gentleman, right? And to have it all and to be truly free. That includes physically free, emotionally free, sentimentally free as a husband and father, right? And financially free. And if I abandon my family, I'm not gonna have it all, right? And I'm not gonna be that modern gentleman that I talk so much about. So I get those negative feelings, right? I get that the enemy creeping in, right? But then because I know what I want, I choose differently, and I decided to show up differently. But so yeah, I mean, what's your take on that, man?
I think you're right on with being honest with yourself. That's good that you can recognize, hey, those thoughts are going through my head, instead of just shoving them under a rug and not addressing them. I think they have to be addressed. And I think you have to, just like you kind of said, recognize that if the enemy's creeping in, and if he's whispering lies to me, and really take a step back and go, okay, like I know for me, I never experienced, when my wife left, I never in a million years would have thought that I would have felt the way that I did once that fire started inside of me. Because I'll be honest, there was a thought of like, man, I don't want to be a statistic, and I don't want divorce, because that's never been an option for me. But at the same time, this kind of seems like an opportunity for freedom. I don't have to be, I don't have to deal with all this stuff anymore, man. But I said, you know what? That's still taking the easy road. And I don't think we've been called to take the easy road. There needs to be more men that are willing to hold their family together, because we got enough broken homes, and it's affecting our culture. It's affecting the next generations. So our decisions have a much greater impact than what we realize. And that's why we cannot allow self-centeredness to rule us. We have to be able to kick that stuff to the curb and say, no, I'm not going to be the selfish. I mean, I don't picture a gentleman being the selfish one. A gentleman, one of the traditional ways of thinking of a gentleman, someone opens the door for the woman, right? I mean, that's kind of the example it's given often of being a gentleman, open the door for the woman. Well, being self-centered, hey, I'm going to that door first. Maybe you'll make it in before the door closes, whatever. So we've got to eliminate the self-centeredness and be able to be quick to recognize when we're doing that. And so I can speak for myself. When my wife was gone, I didn't have to fight for her. I did not have to, but I chose to because that one thought haunted me for one. But every client, I mean, I've got guys inside the King's Code, and then I have clients in my other business that have also gone through this, where either they've spent so much time on the business, they neglected their family, and now their kids hate them. And now these guys are in retirement age, millionaire, I'm beyond millionaires, right? I mean, they've got all the money they could have. They have a beautiful wife, but their kids hate their guts. I mean, that's no place to be, simply because he never deposited into them when they were younger, because he justified, hey, I'm growing something big for us that you can enjoy later on. Well, they don't want to enjoy it later on. They want nothing to do with them. And so it's sad. So we have to understand that, you know what? Yeah, this thought is really just a lie. It's an opportunity, but it's a lie. And we got to be quick to destroy those things.
Okay. Cool, man. So you got 3 minutes. I want to be respectful of your time. You got 3 minutes?
Go for it, man. Yeah, I got more time.
This self-centeredness, right? Which would explain why I've said it. Like I've even said it to my wife, right? I've said to her that if like that if she doesn't level up, she doesn't level up. So it's not unconditional love, right? Like right now, like my wheels are turning. It's not unconditional love. I've said that if she doesn't level up, right, that I would prefer my dreams and my goals and my aspirations and what I want than my family. What do you think about that, man?
Did you say you told her that? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I told her that. It was a while ago, but
okay.
But I said it, and I still have it in my head, and I still feel it.
Well, I think there's a couple things. Often we tend as humans to always think the grass is greener on the other side, when really it's a hard reality that it's not. And I think first and foremost, I think we got to be careful communicating how we communicate something like that to our wife, because I can guarantee she has not forgotten. And that can also just cause more guilt and condemnation and a lot of other things that women deal with internally as well, because there's pressures that she's dealing with that you have no clue about. I mean, that's just the reality of the game is that we get it. We see it from a husband and father's perspective. She sees it from a mother's perspective, and their brains work so different that we can't even try to figure it out. Right. But they're mulling things over and chewing on things in ways that we just don't even have a clue. And so I think when you're saying, hey, you know what, if you don't grow, and you give her that ultimatum of saying, if you don't grow, I'm going to pursue this other thing. Literally, you're saying, I don't love you enough. And you know what, you're not important enough to stick around for that. And I can guarantee that's most likely what she heard, was something along those lines. In our mind, our thing is, oh, I'll give her an ultimatum and she'll see things my way. Well, she's not going to. And so we have to learn to be better communicators. And we, it's funny on the topic of communication. Okay. Here we are, entrepreneurs. We will take courses on strategic seduction and sales copy and persuasion and how to effectively communicate a sales message. And yet we leave all of that at the door when it comes to communicating with our wives. We read books on business, but we don't read any books on being a better husband. And so it really starts to show that we're kind of jacked up in our thinking. And it's a way to kind of use as a measuring rod and go, man, you know what? I'm not treating you as the queen that you deserve. Look, I'm concerned that you're not growing, because you could totally reframe that whole statement, right? You could say, hey, I love you and I made a commitment to you and I'm still committed, but I'm concerned because here's where I think we're going. And yet I don't really feel you're on the same page. And you know what? Often it comes down to not having the same vision. The Bible says where there is no vision, the people perish. And I have found that to be true in every area of life. Whether if you've ever been a part of a project with a team and the leader does not cast a proper vision for the project, you've got a whole bunch of frustrated people because they don't understand, why are we doing this and when does it need to get done? Because there's no clarity, there's no clear vision on what the project actually is for. And same with marriage. If you don't have the vision for what the marriage is supposed to be like, what business is supposed to be like, what your walk with God is supposed to be like, what your body is supposed to be like, if you don't have that, you're just taking swings and throwing. It's a shotgun approach, right? I'm going to hit something instead of being the sniper laser focused approach. And so I think in a scenario when you're dealing with those types of thoughts and feelings, we have to stop and go, there's a really good chance I'm being self-centered right now, and it's not going to lead to anything good. It never does. It never. If you start examining the times when you've been self-centered or selfish, They've never usually led to anything good, but when you shift the perspective and say, I'm building a business, not just to have it all, but so that I can make an impact on this world, that I can impact people's lives. There's a deeper purpose to all of this, that I can glorify God in this. Now the drive changes as well. And now it's not so much about, like, for just as an example, I'll give you a real life example and I'll shut up. I have been working on a book for 3 years, right? And so, and I'm treating this thing like a hobby. I'm like, yeah, all right, I'll write another chapter, and then it goes away and I don't see it for a few months, and then I'll write another chapter. And so it has not been a priority, right? God totally got a hold of me just this past month. And he's like, this book is not about you. This book is not a hobby. This book is meant for other men to read and make an impact so they can change their lives. Because I look at the men that's going through crisis, that's dealing with the affairs and all this stuff. They're in crisis mode, and this book can help. But yet I'm the one being selfish because I'm viewing it as a hobby. Oh yeah, I'll get to it when I get to it. Well, now this month, man, I'm trying to bust out a chapter a day because now the perspective and the drive is different. I'm doing this for God because it serves a much bigger purpose than just, well, I'll get around to it so someday I can say I wrote a book, because that's the thing to do as an entrepreneur or coach. See what I'm saying? So there's a massive mindset and belief system change.
Man, I didn't intend for this to be like a therapy session or a coaching session or anything like that. But there's two aspects of like in business, there's authority and there's empathy. So right now, I used empathy because I'm sure that, even though I promote this idea of becoming the modern gentleman, I mean, there's always improvement that has to be made. And I bet that everything that I said and everything that, we talked about could be related could relate to a lot of other men. So, I mean, it was great. It was great. And thank you. I got a lot of value to you, man. So I like to end this interview with 5 questions. Can I go ahead and ask you the first one?
Go for it, man.
So what would you say to your 20-year-old self? If you could go back in time and give some advice to your 20-year-old self, maybe 24-year-old self, what would you say to him?
That's a good question. I think I would probably say, you know what, stay the course, because at that time I was in ministry and I was right with God. If I went where I was doing right with God, I think it would probably have to do more with either the marriage or full-blown calling. I think I would probably have to give myself advice on embracing what I've been called to do, because I resisted. I had what I call a ministry mindset, and my view on money wasn't good. My view on business wasn't good, and I wanted nothing to do with any of it. And so I think any kind of advice I could have given at that point in time was to really not allow belief systems to get in the way and really pursue truth and what God's perspective is on these things, because that would have helped me out a lot faster, a lot sooner.
Cool. Great, man. So the second question is, what is one shift, one mindset shift, one breakthrough that you made that you can share that has allowed you to level up in your life, in your marriage, and in your business and with yourself?
Simply, instead of me trying to be a good entrepreneur, a good businessman, instead of me trying to be a good preacher, instead of me trying to be a good husband and father, and because there's a lot of pressure and weight that comes with that and responsibilities, right? So I think, and I tell this to the guys all the time, I say, it's not so much about winning your wife back, and you can fill in the blank on what that means to you, whatever result you're going for. It's not so much about becoming the most successful businessman. It's not so much about becoming or winning your wife back. I'll just use that as an example, but it's about becoming the man that God has put you on this earth to be. It's about becoming the man that God has called you to be. Because when you can say, I'm doing that, everything else seems to fall in line. Because as I tell these guys, this program is not going to help you win your wife back. It's going to help you become the man God's called you to be. And in doing so, that can win your wife back. Because if you just try to simply win your wife back and bypass being the man that God's called you to be, you're going to repeat history again, and marriage is going to suck again because you're going to do the same things again. But when you can change and become more like him, now a new you is playing the game of marriage and business and all the other areas of life.
So how would you put that in short?
Be the man that God's called you to be.
Okay. All right. instead of trying to fix my marriage or whatever, I need to act more like a modern gentleman instead, and be what I was called to be.
Yeah, I see, and I have a habit of bringing God into everything because I've recognized without Him I'm nothing anyway, because I've tried doing it on my own. And so when I recognize that God is truth, and if I am and I'll try to make it super short. There's my favorite chapter in the Bible is John 15, and it talks about producing much fruit. And you'll love this because it's really producing much results. But it gives an example or paints a picture of a vine and a branch. So because the branch is what produces the fruit, right? But if the branch is not connected to the true vine where it's getting its sources and nutrition and life from, it's not going to produce much fruit. And I love how it says much fruit, not rotten fruit, not pruny fruit, because isn't that a standard to live by? I want to produce much fruit in business. I want to produce much fruit in my marriage. I want to produce much fruit in every area of life, much results. But if I disconnect from that true vine, disconnect from God, I can become better. Sure. I could become a better man. Sure. But without Him, I'm never going to reach the fullness of why I was put on this earth or who He's called me to be. And if He is truth and He is love and all these things, I want that, because then these other things start to fall in line.
Cool. Awesome, man. Yeah, I loved it. So let's see. All right. So what is the third question is, what is I haven't memorized, so I'm trying to like recall the other one. What is a strategy or tactic that you have to make sure that you have clarity in your life? Right? Like something that you use, I don't know, strategy tactic to have clarity in your life, in your marriage, or in your business, whatever, right? Clarity.
Yeah. I have, and we teach this, and I know this is not a new thing, but we teach it a little bit differently. So, about the power hours, and, everyone's talking about starting your morning, waking up early. I know you're an early riser as well. My power hour looks a little bit different. I call it the first fruit power hour. And the first fruit is giving the first to God, and then the rest is blessed. And so there's a whole bunch of scripture that I could go through that backs that up. But I call it the first fruit because I'm giving my first to God. But in that power hour, I'm also touching faith, family, production, and health. And so, for example, I got my planner, and I got it all listed out. So every day I'm not just listing out, these are the meetings I have. Here's the projects I need to get done. Here's my targets. Here's stuff that's on my radar. It's not just that. It is also saying I'm including God into this, because if I can get clarity from God and get His perspective on this, the games change, because now I'm getting His priorities rather than my own made up ones. And I'll tell you, man, I bypass so much garbage and so much crap in life when I get His perspective versus my own. Should I focus on this strategy? Should I focus on Facebook ads, or should I focus on organic? Things like that I'm asking God about, because I know I'm going to bypass a lot of annoyance, a lot of pain, and probably wasted money if I can get His perspective and His strategies. So I do all the things that I think is taught often, but I'm including God. In that first fruit power hour, I am able to touch and deposit in each quadrant.
That's deep, man. It's because I've been very connected to God lately, man, and I don't know, like I think, well, I don't think, I think it's for sure, right, that's more of what I should be doing, right? Like every morning asking Him for, begging Him to give me some wisdom and to give me some clarity and discernment and amplitude of heart and understanding and stuff like that, right? So I've been begging Him for that. So yeah, cool. The fourth question, man, is what is one habit that you think has contributed to your success, happiness, and fulfillment right now in your life?
One habit that took a while for it to actually become a habit. When my wife left, I don't think, we get triggered, right? And we live in a culture of triggeredness, but when it's a real trigger, like a legit thing, like you go down a street or you see something or smell something and it triggers this negative emotion or hurt or pain, those are real triggers, right? Those are the things that really hurt and can cause us to run to things that numb the pain and all that kind of stuff. So when my wife left, and especially after I got her back, I've really started experiencing triggers, and I'm like, man, so I would enter this parking lot. I would go down this street. I would see this one. I would look out a window at night, and it would trigger these emotions and pains of things that took place when she was gone. And they were real. They hurt, right? And so there was something that a very, very good friend of mine knocked into me and held me accountable. She gave me 3 steps, and she would text me every day during this whole thing. And she asked the question, are you running to the Lord? Are you running to him? And since then, I've expanded upon it. We have a 7 steps inside of the King's Code, and we do this stuff. But the ultimate habit now is running to the Lord, telling him what happened, and then getting his perspective on it. Every time you get pissed off, get mad, get discouraged, feel rejected, get stressed, tempted, whatever it may be, to do the wrong thing. If we, instead of running to video games, porn, drugs, alcohol, all those things that typically lead down a bad road or are already a bad road, if we are quick to run to him and get comfort from him, which I know might sound completely weird to some people. I mean, I get it. I know that's not normal teaching, but if we could get comfort from him, if we could get strategy from him, if we could get love and acceptance from him, and we can legitimately feel that, wouldn't that change the game? Compared to, oh, I'm going to do the same stupid cycle again whenever I get triggered. And so I learned to become quick to run to the Lord in certain things and get his perspective or whatever it was that I have need of. And that was a game changer in every area, because, hey, I want my wife back, but it doesn't mean it was easy. And there's still things that we're working out on certain levels. And I got to be quick to run to the Lord even now. So whether it's a client that's a jerk, or your wife, kids, whatever, quick to run to the Lord.
Great, man. All right. So now the last question is just to get your thoughts on KPIs, having KPIs. I mean, because we know we have to have them in business, right? But maybe you can talk about having them in your life, KPIs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is another thing that we're really good at when it comes. Well, some of us are really good at when it comes to business. You know, we're measuring things, and we have those different KPIs in different areas, and knowing our numbers, right? And there's protection in that, and there's wisdom in that, because the numbers don't lie. I've often said, when it comes to the faith, family, and health side, though, that we tend not to measure things. We tend not to use things as measuring rods, or even examine, hey, am I growing in this area or not? I actually just use this example inside of my group. If you ever go to the gym, and there's those certain guys, and you may be one of them, but there's those certain guys that you see them with their little notebook, and after every set, man, they're writing stuff down, and they're checking to make sure, hey, am I improving or am I not? That's ultimately what they're wanting, right? And so inside of what we teach, from the first fruit power hour to what we call the weekly realm review, we are monitoring, noting, and tracking our progress. Hey, what is my current condition right now? What am I doing to deposit? And did I win? Because I think, we live in this weird culture where everyone gets a participation prize, right? Like, hey, I participated, I get a medal, I get a prize, which is stupid. So I want something, as I'm sure you do, at the end of the day and at the end of the week, I can say, did I win or did I lose this week? Like, did I win? Did I hit my targets or not? And so, I think if you have a framework or a process in place that you can start tracking your daily progress, you got to get clear on what it is that you're going for, what the steps are you need to take, and then being able to really track that and say, did I hit it? Did I not? Did I hit it? Did I not? And then why? Why did I? Why didn't I? And asking the right questions, you will get more clarity.
Great, man. So that's all I have, man. Thank you for answering those questions. Thank you for this amazing talk. I've gotten a lot of value. I'm sure that, the audience has gotten a lot of value as well. So, let's say that I resonated a lot with you, man. And, I love what you're all about, and what you talk about, and what you help men with, and everything about you, right? So, and I want to know more about you. So where can I get more of you, man? Where can I find you?
I think probably the easiest way is you can go to thekingscode.com. We're revamping some stuff there, but thekingscode.com is where we're housing a lot of stuff. I am on Instagram. You can follow my personal profile. My username is Rule Your Realm. And those are the 2 places where I'm trying to be most active on. So yeah, you can definitely hook up with me there.
All right. Well, we're going to have those links as well. And well, Thank you very much for being here, man. I really appreciate it and I enjoyed it.
My pleasure, Alex. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
Thank you for watching the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with one friend, leave us a comment, and let us know. 99% of people never leave a review or comment, but we love and are very thankful with the 1% of you who do. If there's something or someone you want to see on this podcast, send me a message on Instagram at Alex_Ramirez1020 and let me know. As a thank you for that, I have an amazing surprise for each and every one of you who does take the time to leave us a comment or review on YouTube or one of the major podcasting platforms